Hey, government students. Today we are going to go over your Supreme Court project. So you should be looking at something similar to what I'm looking at here. At the very top, it obviously says Supreme Court project. So let's go over this together. So, introduction. The Supreme Court interprets the Constitution and determines how it applies to various situations that come up throughout the United States. So the Supreme Court takes issues that are going on within the United States, compares it to the Constitution, and determines how does the Constitution rule or determine or apply to this specific issue. So when the Supreme Court rules on a case, it sets a precedent for all similar issues throughout the country. So if someone brings a case to the Supreme Court, let's say Mr. Aaron punishes Alexia Brown in class, and she didn't think it was fair, and it makes it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rules in favor of Lexi. Well, that means any teacher throughout the country that punishes their students like Mr. Aaron did to Lexi are now affected and now have to follow the rules that the Supreme Court just determined based on that one case. So here's an actual real world example. So in 2015, the Supreme Court ruled that laws in Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, and Tennessee keeping people of the same sex from getting married to each other was unconstitutional. So people who wanted to get married in these states, they were not allowed to get married. There was a law saying that they couldn't get married in those states. Thought that wasn't fair, and so they sued Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, and Tennessee, their various states, in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional for those states to have those laws. So, by the Supreme Court ruling in this way, it meant that all laws nationwide that blocked people of the same sex from getting married were now unconstitutional, and thereby making legal same-sex marriage across the country. So these few people who are suing in a couple of states in order to get married to a partner that was of the same sex as them now made that legal across the whole country because the Supreme Court ruled in the way they did. So this same-sex marriage case, known as Obergefell v. Hodges, and that should be italicized because in Supreme Court cases, the names are italicized and the V is not italicized. Little formatting knowledge there for you. So Obergefell v. Hodges was a controversial decision that many state lawmakers and voting citizens across the country did not agree with. But because the Supreme Court ruled in this way, it was now the precedent the whole country must follow until or unless the Constitution is changed or amended. So because the Supreme Court ruled that outlawing same-sex marriage was unconstitutional, everyone in the country had to abide by that, unless people change the Constitution and add an amendment or something like that, because then the Constitution is changed and the Supreme Court would rule differently. So that's a basic outline. Here's what your project is. So regardless of personal or political view, Obergefell v. Hodges had an obvious impact on the United States and its citizens. So whether or not you agree or disagree with the ruling, it has impacted the country. Your task in this project is to research, choose, and present the Supreme Court case that you believe to be most influential in American history. And there's going to be a lot of cases to choose from. So choosing a Supreme Court case. First, you will need to decide what case to do your project on. There are a lot of important and impactful cases the Supreme Court has ruled on. You need to research and determine which one you believe to be the most influential of them all. The only case that I am keeping you from choosing is Marbury v. Madison. We've talked a little bit about Marbury v. Madison this year and how influential and important it is. And frankly, I just didn't think it's very fair for anyone to be able to choose the Supreme Court case that gave the Supreme Court the power of judicial review. So any court case, Supreme Court case other than that one. On the following page, I've included a list of potential Supreme Court cases. You'll see that down below. Actually, I'll just scroll down here. So here's a list of Supreme Court cases that a lot of people consider the most important ones or landmark Supreme Court cases. You do not have to choose one of these, but these are ones you could start with if you're having a hard time deciding. If you just want to Google them and find one on your own, or you already know one, you can do that too. So once you have chosen your case, what are you going to have to do? So here's your project. 1. You are to write a research paper outlining the Supreme Court case you have chosen and explaining why it is important or influential. If you're needing help in writing this research paper, I've included a guide down below. So right here, you'll see I broke it down paragraph by paragraph what you could include in your research paper. So paragraph 1, your introduction, 3 to 5 sentences. You answer these questions. Why are you writing this paper? The Supreme Court case, whatever you chose, is important because ... What are the main topics you are going to discuss in the paper? Paragraph 2. What is the Supreme Court case's constitutional issue it's talking about? And so I broke it down paragraph by paragraph what you could include in the Supreme Court case. Essentially, all you have to do is just follow that guide, answer those questions, and you have a paper written. Now, you do not have to go in that same way. You don't have to use that outline, but that's just a little help if you need it. So that's the first part of the project. You're going to be writing a research paper. Could be 1-2 pages longer if you need. And then the second part, you're going to create a presentation via Google Slides or something similar, explaining and convincing me why your case is the most important and influential of all of the cases you could have chosen. So this is a part where you are trying to persuade me to why your case is so important and influential. And you can tell me a little bit about it as well. If you've already written the paper, which you should have by the time you're doing the presentation, all the stuff down here, you have all the information you need in order to do the presentation. Essentially, it could be just taking your paper, formatting it differently into a Google Slides, and bam, you've got it. Now, you will not be presenting these to the class, so don't worry about having to do that. You're just going to be creating the presentation and sharing that with me. Now, I also gave underneath the list of Supreme Court cases some places to trust and some resources for you researching during this project. Oyez is the most commonly used one, and that's a really good one. But if that one's harder for you to understand, I'm fine with you using Wikipedia. Wikipedia does a great job of making it more easy to understand and outlining the case and what actually happened. So feel free to use Wikipedia. I put some other ones on here if you want to browse those, or if those pop up when you're doing your research. Those are things you can trust. And as I said in here, you can always Google the name of any of these cases. If you say District of Columbia v. Heller sounds interesting, let's see what that is. You Google it. A ton of different things are going to pop up. So feel free to just Google them. If you just want to type in landmark Supreme Court cases or the most important Supreme Court cases into Google, again, you're going to get tons and tons of choices. So feel free to do that. If you guys have any questions on this project at all, remember you can always post in the classroom or email me. If you email me, that's the quickest way to get a hold of me. But we're going to get started on this. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's usually a pretty fun project. I'll also be giving you guys some resources and some things to look at over the next couple of weeks. I hope you guys are well, and I will talk to you soon.